The following program is brought to you with limited commercial interruption.
Today's broadcast is being simulcast in broken English.
I'm here to show the world. I'm here to show the world.
Welcome to the show that we're doing right now.
What the hell are we doing on this show?
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
It jumped up a notch.
It did, didn't it?
Let's go.
What is this?
Giggity, 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 goo.
Who else but
The Q.
it's showtime. Gentlemen, let's get down to business. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Yeah, I can dig it, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the QNow. You're listening to the best pop culture, current events, current affairs show, east or west of that Mississippi. You're hailing from the great city of St. Louis and worldwide at theqnow.com. I am your host, Mark Bland, joined today by none other than my co-host. This man, he has been running and running down the hall. He's got it. Oh, there he is. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Call is once again back in the building. Lightning fast, very fast. Always running to get to his spot. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. John Combest is here to talk about his book and discuss politics with us. I am excited for this. The Riverfront Times, that's right. The Riverfront Times has been sold and their staff was let go. We will discuss this major STL change. And evidently, the Supreme Court is run by people compromised by their claims to being unbiased. We will discuss that also. Oh, yeah, all kinds of things. But without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, he is the author and the owner of JohnCombest.com. He is a local Missouri Politico and very well known. He has had a site since 2001, and he is very well known in the political world. Please welcome to our show, Mr. John Combest.
Thank you for having me,
What's
guys.
going on?
It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for being here, John, man. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. You know, it is an election year.
Oh, yeah.
And being an election year, and as you've been doing this since 2001, you've been through a few of them.
A few of them, yeah.
It's a busy time for you.
It is, yeah.
You've got to keep your ear to the grindstone, especially on the Missouri side of politics, because that's kind of where you cut your teeth a little bit.
That's exactly right.
But you pay attention to the national side, too.
A little bit. More Missouri than national, but we can talk about national stuff.
Obviously, you've got opinions. It's not like you don't have those. But welcome to the QNow.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate
thank you for coming to 1280 AM KYRO, this Fox News affiliate. You can also listen to us on 102.5 WIBH. Down there by Carbondale in southern Missouri, they love
Illinois,
us. We're blowing the blowtorch up. We are turning this into something bigger. John, I need to talk about something live on the air.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
I have had on this show for years a Halloween show. Mm-hmm. Now, it's been in different forms and function over all of those years. Sometimes it's been low key and just like me and Jason and somebody else who does like one of our tournament of pop cultures. Sometimes we've tried to go out and do things from like haunted houses, like the Darkness, or the Silo X when it used to exist. You remember back in the day. But then I got to thinking. You see, there used to be a really popular radio show in the area, and they used to do a pretty cool Halloween show. And I was like, you know what? I haven't done a really what I consider cool broadcasting media style. We want
to go somewhere.
Haunted location, haunted Halloween spectacular. Spooktacular.
Nice.
Spook.
Ooh.
I said spooktacular. That's right.
You can't say that in front of liberals.
Mark Bland.
That guy.
Marketing.
That guy. I'm helping.
Marketing.
That guy.
Marketing.
That guy.
Marketing. I'm doing that stuff.
It's coming out.
Anyway, my point being simply, I felt that it was necessary, and I thought that the St. Louis area has had it taken away from them for such a long period of time. I want to bring it back. So I am trying to put together a Halloween special with this show that I think would be something everybody would like to tune into live. And I'm thinking about doing it sometime around Halloween. obviously.
That's when
and
spooks are out.
we're going to have some fun. I think we're going to have some fun. And we're going to get Jonathan, and we're going to put him in places. And what
here's
else?
what we'll do.
What do you got?
We'll go live without notice to the house where that exorcist took place with that little boy.
Pine
before they
Lawn
took
and
it-
Pine Lawn.
The one in Belle Nord.
Yeah,
No,
Nord.
Before
Yeah,
they took
Belle
him to the
Nord. You're right. We
hospital,
should
it
know.
started at a house.
Yeah.
And it's like this little pointy. Like
Oh no, I've seen it. By the way, it's got like a kick out. Like the house now has like a kick out. What do they call those? That kicks
Like
out
a-
on the
like a
front
balcony?
on the front of the house with the windows, like a big window.
like a
that
bay
kicks out-
window?
like a bay
Yeah,
window.
bay
A bay
window.
window.
That's where they're storing the demons.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go get it. Let's get it. We can do. We'll do for spooky people what other people do for pedophiles. We'll just assume that these people are holding ghosts and just
Yes.
go get them.
Yes. Oh my goodness! Listen. There are certain things. John, you are you hold a special position
I do.
in our radio history. Okay.
Okay.
If I was to say this correctly. Okay. And I've had a lot of different people on. I've had senators on. We've had Congress people on. We've had all kinds of people on the show. But we have yet to have what I consider a local Republican or staunch Republican to come on our show and actually talk politics with us.
Well, that's
to
surprising.
discuss it
What an
back and
honor.
forth. Because, and we're on a, now don't get me wrong, I've had Republican people on the show. People that I consider conservative in their mindset, but like not a person who is known for being in the conservative side of things,
Gotcha.
known for the conservatism. You see what I'm
I
saying?
see exactly what you're saying.
I know people who are conservative, but it's just their style of who they are, as opposed to someone who works within that realm of the game. And so that's why I'm glad that you're here.
Sure.
But you are much more than just a man who writes about politics. You're a man who writes books, too.
I did
Internet
write
stuff.
one, yeah.
You did. And Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks is the name of your book.
Yep.
You could pick it up at Amazon.
That's right.
And we're going to talk. We're going to get into this a little bit. We got some topics. We're going to talk some politics. We got some
Yeah.
fun questions and things. You got to sit on our hot seat. So that's
yeah,
coming up
love it.
later on. Jason loves the hot seat.
I do love that.
He is. Are you okay? You look like you're going to sleep over there, homie.
Not
Are you
going to
done?
sleep. I'm not.
Are you sure? Because you look
was
like you're
thinking-
tired.
I was
What
thinking.
were you thinking about stalking? Were you thinking about
was
stalking?
thinking about
You going to
stalking.
stalk me?
You
I
were
was
talking
like,
about local
who-
Republicans, and that'll put anybody to sleep.
We were going to murder someone live
funny.
on the air,
funny.
and then the penitentiary had to. No, anyway.
Now, so anyway, we're going to work on the Halloween Spooktacular. But John, also on top of writing the books in this,
Yeah.
you also do broadcast. You are a little bit of a
I do,
broadcasting
yeah,
guy,
I do a
like
little bit
you.
of a morning show.
You do now. Do you do this daily every day?
Yeah, Monday through Friday. Yeah, with Brad Hildebrand, a local radio legend.
And what station is that?
It is on KSLQ.
Okay, KSLQ.
yeah,
we know about the Q.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know it very well.
I
You
know
it
about the
better than
Q
most.
that I used to work
Q
for,
106.5.
6.5. But
Yeah,
but
of course.
KSLQ, we know about KSLQ. We know about Brad.
And Brad also owns Westplex 107.1 out here, which is kind of a pop, kind of a Olivia Rodrigo, Taylor Swift,
Sure.
that type of stuff. So
Top 40, got it.
So we've done it for 6 months so far, and it's a lot of
Now,
fun.
do you go into a studio or do you do it from your house?
Oh,
How-
yeah, I do it from the house.
You do it straight
Yeah,
from the house. You guys
straight
just
from the house.
That's beautiful,
We're
man.
letting you in on a secret there. Not many people know
You
that. but we
don't
do it.
always have to go to each other.
I don't know. Like I always come to my studio. to do it in the
Jason's
studio.
thinking maybe I should do this from home.
Yeah,
That's what
well,
Jason's thinking.
well, we've done this from home. We've done this
We
from a
have
lot of
before.
places.
Have you really?
We've
had
done
to
these shows from
emergency
all kinds of.
record
We've had
one
all
time.
kinds of merge. Yes, we've done
Technical
this from all kinds of places.
difficulties.
But
Yeah.
that's awesome, man. Well,
Yeah, it's a
that's
lot of
crazy.
fun.
You should have me on your morning show sometime, or me and Jay come on. We'll,
I would love that.
We'll
I would
crack.
love
We'll,
that.
we'll crack wise with you guys for a little bit and have some
give
fun.
Brad a hard time.
We'll eat a dinner.
Give Brad a hard time. There you go. We could do that. We could give him a hard time. But hey, thank you for coming to another station.
Of course.
To talk to us. We really appreciate that. Now, my first topic that I would like to get into, I think I'm going to save for after the break. And the reason why is because it's a little bit deeper than just a simple conversation. And it's about the Riverfront Times.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But I have a love-hate relationship with the Riverfront
Yeah.
Times. We will discuss the bitter backgrounds of that. But before we get to that, John, what makes you start a website in 2001? Like, why do it? Why?
Yeah.
What got the GERD? Like, what made you do it?
Well, I grew up in the 90s, so I'm a Gen X guy. As of this taping, I'm 46.
Got it.
So when
I'm 48, he's 50-something.
There you
52.
go, 50-something.
50-something. He's 50-something.
So there was
that guy over there.
There used to be a website that was super popular called the Drudge Report.
Yes.
And
Matt Drudge.
And it was just so simple, and it was just a list of links. And so there was nothing like that.
The early days of it, yes. Yeah. I remember the early days.
The early days of it was just pure links, and there was nothing like that for the state of Missouri. So I decided to start my own back, and I came up with the idea in 2000. And at that point...
Did you put it on GeoCities? Is this how old this is? Is this a GeoCities?
It could have been. It was before Blogspot.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You think about it, he started in 2001. That, for me anyway, that's like 5 years deep into internet. It
was
until
real,
like
yeah,
mid '96
'96
before I had any internet.
Well, yeah, I didn't get my first email address until '97.
The first time I used the internet, I found out about the death of Eddie Gilbert, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, the former professional wrestler.
Really?
Yeah, that's an uninteresting factoid about wrestling and the internet.
You are a pro wrestling fan, by the way.
Oh,
you've told me this.
I'm a mark. I'm more than a fan. I'm just a mark.
You're just a straight up mark.
Right.
So you're sitting with a professional wrestler now, someone that you can actually Google and go find out about.
There's YouTube
And I'm
videos.
sure John did his own fair share of Googling to find out things.
Hey, I was a South Broadway Athletic Club guy, man.
There you go.
In the late 80s, early 90s.
When I got in contact with you, did you Google me?
Oh, absolutely.
And go look up stuff?
Well, the first thing I looked up was wrestling because it's in your Twitter bio.
Right.
And I said, okay, we're going to, and then the best story of, Jason, I don't know if Mark told you this, but we were talking over the weekend. And
Yeah, we had a little chat over the weekend.
We had a chat over the weekend, and I didn't know it was going to be a FaceTime call. And then Mark called me on FaceTime, and I had just gotten back from the gym, so I work out a whole 1 hour a week.
He was sexy though, man. He was glistening. The hair was
tell you something.
First off, he looks like McDreamy from what is that show?
That's the first time I've heard
the doctor one, right?
Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy. He looks like McDreamy. He looks like McDreamy.
Not the
but
guy from
I'm not gonna
Can't
lie
Buy
to
Me
you.
Love.
This guy whipped his shirt off with one hand, just grabbed
Now, that is not true.
off, hold on, and
then
just
started
swung it
swinging
around
it
his
around,
hip,
yeah.
and he looked right at the camera, and he just said, I'm ready, Mark. Let's talk. And I was like, wow. This guy is, listen, he's ripped right now because he just got done from the gym.
Yep.
He's glistening.
Yeah.
He looks like McDreamy.
That was baby oil.
One hand over the head, boom. Like a pro wrestler. Like the best version of whatever great pro wrestler
Blood
you could
flowing.
like a Val Venus whipping that towel.
But here's how it
Chub.
happened, though. Because I thought Mark was calling me on OnlyFans, and you
Right.
were actually calling me on FaceTime.
Right,
But anyway,
yeah.
so
I did contact you on OnlyFans like
When you
last
have
time.
two phones, it just gets.
Hey, John makes me pay to talk to him. It's $1.99 a
It's
minute on OnlyFans.
But so Mark had called, and I knew we were going to get along fine when I told Mark, I said, listen, I just came home and took my shirt off. I said, I'm such a Hoosier right now. Do you mind if I go put a shirt on? And Mark said it's fine. And then I found out you went to McClure North, and I knew that we were both suburban North Conference guys, and I'm like, I knew there was something I would dig about this guy.
Right. Yeah. And then that's the thing. If you grew up in North County at all, especially where you grew up, over in Spanish Lake, the deep part of North County.
That's in there.
Yeah, he's deep in.
That's like the news is sometimes on the street.
But there's just a way about us. There's a link. There's a link of that area. And it didn't matter if you went to Hazelwood East or McClure North or Rittner, right? I ate at Chuckaburger. You've been to Chuckaburger. Like, we all have rocked Chuckaburger.
And men of this age, if people of this age that grew up in that neighborhood, that shared experience, there's nothing like it.
And he lived in Spanish Lake. I went to Spanish Lake as a kid, went to the park, played there. Now, Jason doesn't know this as much because he's from Iowa.
I grew up in Iowa.
Yep.
Now, I've lived here longer than I lived in Iowa, though. So.
That's true. Well, yeah, now you know. You probably know where Spanish Lake is.
Yeah,
you might
but,
not know all the little things about it.
I sort of appreciate the stories of people growing up in these areas because I feel like you're better served growing up where there's a little danger. Not a dangerous area, but a little danger.
Okay.
Where anything could go down.
And that was the 90s in North County.
And
like
that's
anything
North County,
could go
where-
any time.
And and that plays into like when we talk. I know eventually we'll talk about social media and the internet and fights.
But North
like
County's
that.
also where you get Mike Brown from. That's
Yeah, for
Ferguson.
sure.
Like that all emulates on. Hey, the most popular female comedian in America right now is Nikki Glazer. She's from Hazelwood Central,
that's right.
North County. That's my point.
I watched a roast with her last night. I didn't watch it with her. I wish I could have watched it with her, but I watched a roast that featured her, I should say.
Sure. Oh, the Tom Brady one?
No, it was Charlie Sheen.
Really?
That's a good one.
Watched an old one, huh?
Sheen one's good.
But that has to do with what you bring up, though, Mark, is the idea of, and it goes to social media, too. There's a certain value in where we grew up. There was an objective reality of if you were talking a whole lot of smack, you had to pay for it eventually.
Sure.
Now, on Twitter, I can be first name lots of numbers and say Mark sucks and Mark's stupid and he's a dummy and I kick his butt. And you know what? There's no consequence.
But when you're John at johncombest.com, they know how to get a hold of the direct individual.
And that's what Mark did.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break here on the Q Now. When we come back, more with John Combest as well as myself and Jason Call. We'll be back on the show right after this.
Some people call me the space cowboy. Yeah. Some call me the gangster of love.
1280 AM, 105.3 FM, KYRO. Welcome back to the Q Now. Mark Bland, Jason Call. Our guest today, John Combest, is here.
Hello.
And we are just hanging out here on this beautiful Saturday with all of you beautiful folks here in the Midwest.
Fire pit
song. And another fire pit song. See, listen, John, you don't know about this. On our show a few weeks ago, we had another individual, and we've been talking now on and off for a couple of months about songs that just kind of they scream play on a playlist at a fire pit. Like,
they sound better
10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night, fire pit's rolling, you got a few in you, you got a nice little buzz going, you're feeling good, you're hanging out at the house, and then Steve Miller Band comes on with the Joker or something like that. Like, it just makes sense. Like, it fits in that ambiance and that moment better than those are called fire pit songs. And so, like, we're going to make a Q Now fire pit list, which is for
on
song
Spotify?
well, whatever. We're going to do it on Apple Music, Amazon, all of it. We're going to try to put it out.
Stick it on your
but definitely
list.
a Spotify list. We're going to do one for Spotify. I personally have Amazon Music, but that's simply because I think when came time to do
I have Amazon.
The music thing, my wife already had Amazon Prime, and she just figured
it's easy.
It was easy. It was an easy add-on.
I keep getting the messages that'll tell me like, "Hey, if you upgrade to unlimited, then you can listen to this. But for now, you got to listen to this playlist." So that kind of pisses me off.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's what they're doing there.
I mean, that's how demanding we are in 2024, you know?
Well, look what Prime did. Prime was like, if you don't pay $3 more, you're seeing commercials.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm not. So show them to me, and I'll close
show
my
them
eyes.
to me now.
We've already discussed that everyone should avoid any commercial you see online. Don't go to that place. If it's a YouTube video, whatever.
So there's a commercial online for a business.
You're stopping me from just watching this video.
Should not go. So you're calling for the boycott of businesses that are advertising with YouTube.
It's the equivalent of asking a famous person for their autograph while they're eating.
You think
you just broke me up watching this show. Now I gotta look at your mattress for 25 seconds.
Now I gotta click on skip ad.
Right? I won't do it. The more they pay, the longer you have to
it's all going to go
back.
back. It's all going to go back. Like, it's all got to go back. It's all going to get too expensive. It's all going to all these changes. It's just going to all go back at some point because it has no other choice.
Like, here's the thing. You know what would happen if I had the technology I had today in 1988 when
you would have
15?
never left the house.
I would have never left the house. Society would be done. We'd be dead by now. That's like, we're getting there where we're about 30 years into real cool technology. We better chill. Like, we're going to kill ourselves.
All right. So,
these driving alert cars, shooting guns at us. Stephen King's, whatever that stupid movie was, all over again. Maximum Overdrive. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I did like Maximum Overdrive.
I did too.
Hey,
I bought the
soundtrack by AC/DC. There you go.
That album.
Whole album. Great album. Great album. All right. So, here in St. Louis, a situation happened this past week where the Riverfront Times, an alternative weekly newspaper, was sold by its owners. The buyer is an affiliate of the BPEA private equity fund, and it is not retaining any current editorial staff. They let all of their editorial staff go.
Everybody today, right? It was today. Wasn't
It was,
this week.
It was this week. It was this week. But yeah, you're okay, so people immediately asked me, like, because I have been vocal at times over the years about my relationship with the RFT, and I've been vocal about the way that they go after certain things.
Frenemies would be.
How does it happen? I'm not familiar with this.
So I started out in the early 2000s connecting up with the RFT, and by 2007, I actually become an answer to one of their trivia questions in their end of the year trivia thing that they have.
Nice.
I'm an answer, like literally. So like we had a really great relationship. And everything was going fine, and they supported my wrestling stuff and other things that I was involved in. And then all of a sudden, they just kind of turned. And I don't know who or why, but I feel it started with a specific editor who was in charge. Well, he was in charge at the time that I got the award, which is where I feel the turn started, which is Chad Garrison. And I like Chad. He's a good dude, and I've known him for many years. We're not like bestest friends or anything like that, but we are acquainted with each other, and we have had interactions in the past.
Yeah.
And so he works at a different place now, a different paper.
Yeah.
He used to work for the Riverfront Times. But his underlings, Sarah Fensky and other individuals who were underneath Chad, they eventually got into positions of power as the editor or the head editor of the newspaper. And I always thought I had a pretty good relationship with them. In 2013, they had a Web Awards, and they gave me the Twitter Twerp Award. It was basically their troll award. It was for best online persona troll on social media.
Wow.
And I won that award, but it was kind of bittersweet because it was obviously at the time, based off of how the relationship had been deteriorating,
here's an award.
It was a
You're
slap
jerk.
in the face. It was kind of a bitter pill.
Had you been chirping at them? Had you been kind of going after them?
At that point, no. Like, there's no up to this point. I'm not doing all of my bitterness or anything that would have come out of the situation from me happens after.
Okay.
Probably 2015 on. Like, I don't really. There's no jibber jabbing or attacking or anything like this. Now, I'm definitely on Twitter. I am extremely active in 2013 and verified.
Twitter too, by the
and
way.
verified.
You were verified very early, right?
Yeah, somewhere around 2013, 2014,
Yeah,
I get verified.
That was really early.
Somewhere around there. And it was like, this dude's a jerk. That's how I felt. Like,
do you
this
think
dude's
it was
a
from
jerk.
one person?
I don't know what person it was from, but then I also recognized that it was involving my conversations with other people who worked at the same newspaper, that I also had other relationships from my music side of my world.
Okay.
And some of my conversations with those individuals went kind of sideways and weird for no reason. And it was like out of the blue. And then once I got that award, I kind of knew that they had turned their back to me. Like they that was their final, like, hey, bye type thing. And it was like, I didn't understand why, and I still to this day don't have a single clue why. I never did anything to the RFT or the Riverfront Times. I was always very professional with them and tried to handle things in the most professional manner. I've got emails. I can show them to people of interactions. And I'm not saying that I haven't said things about the RFT. I'm not saying that I've been this schoolboy, this angel. I just said to John that around 2015 and on is where all of my anything that I attacked with or threw out there exists.
Yeah.
And it's still out there. You can go look it up right now. I didn't erase it or take it down, and I'm not against it. And at the times, I believed and said those things because that's what I thought at those times. It was my hands typing those things. My brain's the one who put them together.
I haven't read the RFT.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I declassified it all. Never mind. I just waved my hands and said declassified. It was all declassified. So it doesn't matter anymore, guys. It doesn't matter anymore.
It's like
Never
a father. You guys are fine.
But
Go have fun Saturday.
From what I understand, though, remember Sarah Fensky was gone for a few years, right? So she was out of town. She
I'm
left and then
sure
she came
at
back.
some point, I don't know. Like, that's what I'm saying. After 2013 is when I think Sarah takes control at some point, and what you're talking about might happen in that 8 to 10 years. I wasn't really paying attention. I wasn't interacting with them directly. Like, we didn't have a relationship.
I see what you're saying.
To where they're talking to me about anything, which is weird because I was involved in events. But go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, I haven't read that paper since they stopped carrying Savage Love.
Oh, I remember
Because now
those
the internet,
days.
you can just go to Pop's
of course.
website and all these websites. But back in the day, you had to get that paper and find out who's
I
coming.
remember that.
But here's my problem. Let me propose this to all of the listeners here in St. Louis and Radioland and across the nation listening to this show, whether it's live or via podcast, okay? The Riverfront Times and me, we're not at odds because I don't dislike or hate the Riverfront Times. My problem is simply I'm a local kid from Florissant, Missouri, who grew up in St. Louis, who wanted to be a radio disc jockey and on-air personality and a professional wrestler. And I was able to do both things successfully. I also have a master's degree, but let's stick with just the radio broadcasting side of things, ladies and gentlemen. I was able to take the Q. At the time, it was called the Q. Now I call it the QNow for a specific reason, but at the time it was called the Q. And I was able to take it from a podcast to a broadcast radio show. And from a broadcast radio show, I took a podcast to a syndicated show. No one does that. No one takes a podcast to a broadcast show, and no one takes a broadcast show that was a podcast and goes syndicated with it. It doesn't work that way. It didn't work that way for Dana Lesh. She was She went from broadcasting on the radio to broadcasting syndication. She wasn't a podcast. She might have had a podcast.
Super Beats.
She's probably got a podcast today selling Super Beats, but she didn't at that time.
If you want to get
it was
blood flow.
like the way to usually go was you were a radio broadcaster and then you were offered syndication. I took a podcast to broadcast and then the broadcast to syndication. That doesn't happen. Local boy made good. What a great story for a kid who used to be a trivia answer for one of your trivia questions. Somebody who used to be in news articles that you used to write about. What a great story to put out there about a North County kid who made good and how he's out there fighting the good fight on the other side of it. And by the way, you can even tap into the fact that I'm on a conservative radio station. You can even let the conservatives know in the world that you guys also talk about conservatives and how there's a station that's willing to put their money where their mouth is and put their time behind the other message. That's pretty impressive because that's not happening, right, John?
Yep.
John, you pay attention to a lot
You're
of
exactly
politics
right, yeah.
and you pay attention to a lot of people from a lot of different places in the country. That type of stuff does not happen all the time.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. And I feel like they could have easily done that. It was sitting right there. It's still sitting right there. They could easily do this. There's no reason to not. But I think it's that stringent mentality that stops them. Whatever BS thing they created that stops them, that probably also wielded its ugly head in other ways in this situation, which led to them letting go of the entire editorial staff. Like, guys, that's a big move.
That says to me the paper is going to change. It's going to have a whole different
It's going to have to.
It'll be a different viewpoint. I'm not sure if that'll be good or bad.
But
Well,
from what I understand, they're not going to continue, right? I mean, they
I have no.
They bought it to just discontinue it.
I think so.
They just want. What do they get for it then? I mean, why buy it? What do you get?
I'm not
Sell
sure.
it off to who? Like, I don't know. Pieces, I guess you could.
Yeah, I don't
Could
know.
piecemeal something like that together.
The intellectual property
Maybe,
of naming
yeah.
Mark Twitter twerp of the year.
Yeah, they
But,
bought it just
see,
to enshrine
but,
that.
Okay, and guys, don't get me
Smart
wrong.
move,
Don't get me
fellas.
wrong. As an adult, I understand me discussing this in a very open public forum like this might come off as petty
No,
to other people
boy,
listening. Hey, and that's fair. Listen,
You have to. Tell
I
what
don't
happened.
mind all viewpoints against me, right? Short of rape and murder and purposely doing it to me. Have your viewpoint. I don't mind.
I
Like
would-
I'm
I
not
don't-
gonna
I
I'm not
wouldn't
gonna
want
hold it
that
against
either.
you. If you think that I'm being petty for saying the things I'm saying, fine, so
I'm
be
a
it. But
fan
at the
of
same
this rape
point,
and murder stuff.
they just let go of their entire newspaper and got rid of them. That sounds to me now. Is it a blow to the St. Louis community? It is.
It is.
I will sit there and say and defend the Riverfront Times and say they were a part of this community, and they did serve a purpose in letting people know about the entertainment and the goings-on around the area. It was an important aspect to our area.
You know something? If I look at John this way and I get down and I let the microphone
McDreamy aspect pops up.
I let the microphone block his nose.
Yeah.
He looks like Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh,
Like
I haven't heard that one before.
Move your nose down.
Let it kind of.
Oh, yeah.
He does, doesn't
Yeah, he
he?
does. He does.
Like
Kinda
a lot.
You do
Hey,
have a
no
lot.
offense taken.
No, like a lot.
I've heard Peyton Manning before, but it's not
No,
based
no,
on
the
skill or
forehead.
anything. Yeah.
You gotta have a forehead.
I gotta have a 5-head.
Nah, he's got
gotta
a
have a 5-head.
forehead, right?
Yeah, but the RFT also used to do really good deep dive journalism.
They did.
And, that's gone by the wayside. I remember, I'm going to sound like an old guy, but I remember in the 90s when you would find deep dives on public corruption and,
Oh, yeah.
huge stories.
They
used to be
really
good.
Ray Hartman
For sure.
really knew what he was doing in the early days of that paper, and he wielded it properly. And I feel like the staff that he had around at that time, and even the early entertainment people that he had, they just really did a great job. Listen, guys, we're going to take a quick break here on the Q Now. When we come back, more with myself and John Combest and Jason Call. We'll be back on the show right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 1280 AM KYRO. My name is Mark Bland. This is the Q Now. That gentleman over there is Jason Call.
It is.
And we are joined today by one Mr. John Combest.
Yes, sir.
Hanging out with us here on the radio and kicking it now. John, let's talk to you a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
You grew up in North County. You
I
said
did,
you grew up in
Spanish
the 90s. And this led to a website called johncombest.com, which you start in 2001. We've kind
That's
of
right.
prefaced that a little bit. You said there was nothing like Drudge, so that's what kind of got you started into it. But why local Missouri politics? Why not national politics? Where were you, what was the, pull for that?
Yeah, national politics never really interested me. I was never really interested in it. I started volunteering for campaigns back in 1994, so that was my junior year at Hazelwood East.
Okay.
And so I started volunteering for local Republican candidates. And, just national politics. And I also thought, looking back on it now, ego-wise, I never wanted to be a voice in a big sea, in a big ocean.
Sure, no, yeah. You'd rather have something that's a little bit more localized. The impact is right there. See, and that's the problem. This kind of goes back to that RFT thing we were just talking about. After a certain while, I felt like I wasn't part of the local flavor anymore. I felt like that I kind of gotten my back turned on me by the Riverfront Times and the place that was kind of telling everybody what to take a look at and
what
pay
was
attention
hip and
to.
what was cool.
And because of that, I had to kind of focus outside of St. Louis. I had to start looking for a larger scale. Do you see what I'm saying? I had to go searching somewhere else.
Yeah.
I used to have that and it went away.
Hey, you know what?
You go the other direction. You're like, I want this localized. Because I don't want to be that over there.
You're exactly right. And nobody, like I said, nobody was doing this for the state of Missouri. And remember, too, in the late 1990s, so in college I started doing an email newsletter. Remember when those were a big thing?
Sure.
Newsletters?
Yeah. Of course.
Sign up for our email newsletter.
So
remember email chains that were 4,000 emails
God. And people
long?
would forward them to you? God, I hated that. And it'd be a ton of text you had to go
so
through.
ridiculous.
But so I did an email newsletter in college that was, where I would pull articles together. And remember, this is around the time when every newspaper was just starting their website.
Right. Yeah.
So if it was the Kansas City Star was just going online, and St. Louis Post-Dispatch had Postnet. Remember that? That was an archaic thing.
It was very archaic looking.
So back then, as these newspapers and radio stations and TV stations started to put everything online, it just became real simple to do a Drudge Report version of Missouri, which is all it was, and which is really all that it is. It's just a series of links.
Now, obviously, that website has continued on.
Yeah.
And has done well for you over the years. You are obviously in the middle of the trenches of 2024.
Yeah.
And local politics. We've talked about it. We've had Tracy McCreer and a few other individuals.
She's great.
Randy, what was her name? Randy, not
Mick something. She's running for something.
Randy
like
McCallion. Yeah, that's it. Randy McCallion. We've had some John Combest on. Like, we've had some interesting people on. How is it looking for you, from your point of view, on the Republican side when it comes to the elections and what's coming up in November?
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about national stuff too.
Sure, we will.
In Missouri, statewide, Republicans will run the table. We'll win.
It's a
every
red
statewide
state.
office.
That's pretty much expected.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, but I do think.
But isn't that a problem? Don't you think that there's a disconnect when? Okay, let's just put it out there, John. Mm-hmm. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody really knew who Josh Hawley was when Josh Hawley got elected.
For sure.
And I'm talking about to his seat at the Senate on the national side. I'm not even talking about stuff he did on the state side.
Yeah.
Nick Schroer is even less known than him.
Yeah.
Nobody knew who Nick Schroer was. Nobody knew who Bill Eigel was. No, like, I feel like because it's a red state run the table type situation almost every single election cycle, it doesn't matter what your name is. And it doesn't matter who you are. You don't have to have a relationship with your local people. And you don't have to really know them. Because if you just put your name in and say you're the Republican, they're just going to vote for you anyway.
Hey,
and so now I've got an individual, not a knock. Let's use Nick as an example. I've got a guy like Nick. He's very bombastic in the way he likes to present himself. It might not be necessarily the style of the individuals that he says elected him. But I don't think there were people that knew him who elected. I'm sure that there were people who physically knew him that elected him. But I'm saying, like, the majority of people that voted that day did not know this man. They had never shook his hand. They never talked to him. He had never told them what their policy was. And none of them went and looked him up either, is what I'm trying to say.
I get what you're saying.
And that's an example. I'm just using that as an example. Not a knock on Nick Schroer. Nick's doing fine. He got elected. He's moving. Like, he's fine. My point being, if that's the way it kind of happens anyway, doesn't that mean that if you're a Republican in a state like this, you're almost kind of disconnected?
Well, here's the thing, though. So maybe, but here's what I'll say to that.
Okay.
Is that coming up politically of age in the 90s, when Democrats run the table, Democrats would draw the districts, right? As part of reapportionment and part of redistricting, Democrats would draw the districts, say, in the 90s. And we as Republicans complained a lot about it, and we said it was gerrymandering and this and that.
Because the Republicans at that time didn't want black individuals and subdivisions added into the areas, because that's what the Democrats were trying to do in the 90s. They were trying to add areas in that would include large sections of neighborhoods that were,
depending on the district,
heavily people of color.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why there was ire. I remember some of these things.
Yeah.
Like, I remember why the ire was back then from the Republicans. It's like, well, we don't want you redistricting. And their argument is always, because we just don't want you redistricting. If it ain't broke, we don't need to fix it. I understand that argument. But the truth is, behind the scenes, they're like, we don't want those people getting involved in this, because then that vote might always go that direction, and we can't have that. Like, we want this to be more fair. And it's like, but everybody's just voting. Either you're liked or you're not. And if you're not liked, you're not liked. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, I really feel like we overdo it. We try to, like, overthink it, but it's like, this is why I think there's a big problem on the Republican or on the Democratic side with Trump. Right now, it's just the simple idea of, you lost. Get over it. We're moving on. Here's another election. By the way, Trump, if you want to know how fair everybody's being to you, look at how much crap has happened since you ran for the first time in 2016 to you alone in all of this, and you're still on the ballot, and the RNC's pick, as of right now, for the November ballot. Nothing's happened to you. It's all just running like normal. That should be your clue that when you won and then worked for 4 years as the president and then lost and went to the next guy for 4 years and now you're running again. And guess what? You might win and then you'll run for 4 years. Like, It's just running normal, bro.
Yeah,
Like, that's what we're all trying to say to you. It's just running normal, and you have mental issues.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to Missouri real quick.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. So let's get back to Missouri.
John, I apologize.
But my point is, I know you get heated
It was
about
very
this kind of stuff. That was a good promo, though.
Listen, I get very passionate. Sometimes
you
I have
do.
to turn, sometimes I got to just turn your mic off. We shush people on this show. We don't let them talk. I just talk on the mic. It's a show. You know what I'm saying? So, we get around, John. We get around. We do our thing.
So,
anyway,
back
to the Missouri side.
Take it back to Missouri. So we're a solid Republican state now,
for sure.
And Democrats are widely expected. I mean, folks who follow this stuff every day will tell you that Democrats will likely pick up seats in the state legislature. So they will go from being a mathematical super minority to being just a minority.
Okay,
and so that's maybe a silver lining for Democrats, I guess. But we're in a spot now where Democrats aren't going to win statewide without a Todd Aiken type of event happening. Without somebody, the whole
everything collapsing at once.
Yeah. So I think for Democrats, it's a matter of picking their spots. And as we've seen in the legislature this year, Republican on Republican verbal violence and who is more mad at who and who is more right-wing.
Do you think it's justified?
Do I
the
think
verbal the attacking, the Republicans attacking each other, the inter-party fighting?
So is it necessary? Of course not. Is it necessary to get attention? Absolutely. And is it effective? For sure. Of course it is. And
how is this effective? How is me finding out that this guy wants to argue with that guy, and
give you a
to the
great
point
example.
where they want a duel on the Senate floor?
But see, people know that story, and people know. So,
I know that story because it's so outlandish and stupid.
But here's the thing:
I also know every single time that somebody does something in the state of Florida or Texas,
or Tennessee,
I know that the Attorney General of the state of Missouri will immediately try to turn that into the next thing on his agenda to be a part of. I don't know why he feels that these cliched, media-fed, big stories from other places are the thing for us.
Well, he's also got a Republican primary, Mark.
But they're not for us. Just because that state is rocking with grouper fish for every day for lunch because they have beaches doesn't mean Missouri's going to rock with it every day for lunch. That's just not how it works.
Well, but here's why the fighting, I think, is necessary, is because if you look at a place like the Missouri Senate where a lot of the battles were,
sure,
we're electing people now that campaign on being a fighter. And there's a guy down in Springfield, a guy named Garrett Bowles, who talked about this over the weekend. But it's the idea of Republican candidates come out and say, hey, voters want a fighter. I'm a fighter. People don't campaign and say, I'm going to go get stuff done. That's the difference.
But then they spend all their time posting pictures of flame-throwing books and wearing tactical vests and holding guns. And they do all that stuff online all day long. And I'm like, well, what does that got to do with...
But here's what it has to do with. If your rubric by which you're successful, if the way you judge it is, I'm going to get a certain number of likes, I'm going to get a certain number of reshares. Imagine if you had done a 4-minute video.
If you were that basic of a person and that petty for notice and notoriety, then sure, I guess.
But it's a top of the funnel, and you know this better than anybody, Mark. It's the idea of the top of the funnel for getting attention. So if you get X million views on something,
sure,
and then 10% of people, you know this better than anybody.
Oh, I know. Trust me.
And you get it to filter down, then maybe some of those people might give you $20 to your campaign or whatever.
I understand how these things work.
We're all competing for attention here. And if you got to use a flamethrower, why not? If you got to, Valentina Gomez is out there setting books on fire.
Listen, I am not against taking a flamethrower at a bonfire with our fire pit songs playing in the background.
On Halloween.
On Halloween with John Combest. And just lighting up the entire forest with it. I don't have a problem with any of this at all because, like I've told John and everybody knows on this show, and Jason knows very well, I pull from both sides. I am cool. I own guns. I shoot. I've got my own things. I just am also smart enough to understand and see through some of these other things. One of the things you and me talked about when we had our little chat that we were talking about earlier on the air, that we talked about is the fact that politics today, whether it's local or national, is very pro wrestling-like in its style. And some of the stuff you just brought up, the likes, the shares, that notice, that bombasticness, that's what pro wrestling is. It's a little bit of that at times. So I understand that in the world of pro wrestling, though. When you're now talking about real people being able to have an abortion or not, real people being taxed or not, their money being taken from them, real people having to deal with property and issues like that, like real things that we really deal with offline in our real world, not just what we pay for a ticket to go see at the Enterprise Center every once in a while. That's when I have a problem playing the bombastic card.
But see, that's where you and me and Jason can very quickly start sounding like old guys. Because if Mark went down to South Broadway Athletic Club, you could have a 15-minute technical wrestling match with somebody.
Sure.
And you know what?
It would be awesome. People would think it's cool.
But also people, if they were polite, they would maybe pay attention to something else or scroll their phone.
Sure.
But what they want to see is they want to see you brawling. They want to see you calling everybody fat and calling them losers.
But when I bend them over that top rope and I slap that chest real loud, they notice.
Yeah.
And I understand that because that makes them pay attention.
Yep.
They put the phone down.
Yep.
Now that looks cool. Will he do it to you? Oh, what's going to happen next? I understand how this all works. I understand. It's just that idea. Marge is 79 years old. She doesn't like pro wrestling. She watches CSI when it's on. She likes to watch The Rookie because that's what they feed her on Fox every day. She loves to watch her Fox shows, and The Rookie's one of them. She's not researching. She's not finding out. She's not looking for it. She doesn't care about likes. She doesn't care about any of that. She wants to know that Nick Schroer is going to work for the elderly and make sure that, listen, I'm 76 years old and I vote Republican, but I worked for 50 years putting into that Social Security. Do not take my Medicare. Do not take my Social Security. And that's your mom and dad, John. Yep. That's my mom and dad. That's his mom and dad. That's our parents now. Like, they worked. We watched it with our own eyes from those hallways in North County.
Yep.
Watched them come home sometimes tired, hurt, sick, unhappy, sometimes joyous. Like, we watched it all. And now they're the ones that they're like, we're going to take their Social Security. We're going to take their Medicare. I don't like any of that, but that doesn't matter. Listen, we're going to take a quick break here on the show. When we come back, I want to talk to John about this book he wrote. I think, Jason, that this is something that we need to discuss before we get into some of our national stuff, okay?
Absolutely.
We'll be back on the Q Now after this. 1280 AM at KYRO, 105.3 FM, News Radio, KYRO.com, every single Saturday, 1 to 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, here on these beautiful networks that you're listening to. Thank you so much to KYRO as well as WIBH. And today, we have John Combest with us.
Hello.
Jason Cole.
Hello there.
Sitting there side-saddling.
Yeah.
And
Whoa.
John.
Look at me.
That's right. Yeah, maybe you guys could go work out. You know what I'm saying? Go,
hey, you guys like to wrestle?
Yeah, wrestling.
Lift weights?
Yeah, you like to baby oil up.
Watching
I like
Jeffrey
that.
Dahmer documentary?
Whoa, okay. All right.
That took a turn.
It did take it. Now I'm worried about mental health. It just went over.
Never leave.
So John Combest is here, and John is a man of many multi-talents, as we've discussed so far. One of those talents is he wrote a book, as I also already said the name of, which is Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. Now, this is what caught my interest with John when we got to talking. He had explained that he had a book about stalking. I said, I would like to read that. Send me a copy. He sends it to me. I peruse this bad boy, check it out, as I said I would. And let's talk.
Yeah, let's do it.
John, let's get into the background first, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's. I know that's a tough subject probably to deal with. I'm not saying that I want you to necessarily relive a horrible memory, but for the sake of the purposes of this radio program, that you don't probably get to tell a story like this yarn too often anyway, whether you keep it to yourself or not. How does this come about in your world? Is it as a result of JohnCombest.com that this all starts for you?
Yeah, and I think that, and I mentioned in my book, I talk about what I went through in the preface of the book, and really I wanted to make the book not autobiographical.
Sure.
Because I didn't want my own story to detract from it. But, I think a lot
But you want people to know it came from a place of legitimateness and honesty that you had to dealt with.
Like a really low point. And I think that what I always talk about is folks who, if you express any sort of opinion on the internet, and or if you have any kind of success in life, professional success in life, there are going to be people who don't like you, and they could be people who you used to have some sort of association with. They could be people who don't even know you but decide that they hate you for whatever opinion you have.
Sure.
And so, I went through a really hard time in 2017, and the challenging thing for me is that there was no handbook to get through this. There was no handbook to live through, having somebody whose sole intention is to try to push you over the edge.
Now, all right. So I'm the guy. Listen, the reason I do say that I am like Howard Stern is I do ask the questions.
Yeah.
Like I get into it a little bit.
Yeah, for
okay?
sure. And anything that I'm not comfortable talking about, I want to talk about.
Obviously, you're a grown man. You'll do what you got to do. My point being, this situation you dealt with, this individual, was in the end result for you on the personal side, the story, your personal story.
Yeah.
Was it a situation where you ended up just blocking and disassociating completely 100% and to this day have maintained that? Or was it a situation where you made peace with said stalker, or you had a conversation with the individual or the individuals? I don't know if there was multiple individuals. Maybe you did deal with multiple individuals. It's very possible. Have you dealt with multiple individuals in that regard?
No, in that regard, it's only one. And the really sad thing is it's an ongoing situation.
Fair enough. Okay.
And it can be one of those things. I think a lot of folks who've dealt with this before is you can have a situation with a stalker or a harasser or something of that nature, and it can go away for a while. And then if a person sees you super happy or doing very well, then it kind of reignites something in people who are not well. And I think a lot of people have dealt with that.
Quite often in same said situations, the individual lashing out, the stalker, in most cases, they quite often make a proclamation of what they're looking for or wanting. Mm-hmm. My stalker, Jason, famously got to engage with my stalker multiple times because this individual would come through Twitter to find me and discuss things with us. And Jason was a part of some of these discussions where this person went over the edge to the point where they're just like,
contacted me.
His name is not like they're like, Jason, like you're on the air with the guy. Like the least you could do is come clean about this and be honest about this. This proclamation of that there's something that I need out of this situation. Was there something that this person said to you multiple times that they were looking for from you, like like an admission of something or something that they wanted from you or something that you took from them or they felt you took from them? Like, that's what I'm trying to...
Yeah,
most of them have a place where they start.
I get what you're saying. And I think for a lot of people, though, and it might not have been the case in your situation, but in my situation, it's just a matter of when you're consumed by hatred and you're consumed by anger, you just want the other person to feel pain. And
so that's where you feel it's coming from.
Absolutely. And I think also, too, it's really easy to...
Has yours stated as much, though? Have they stated out directly, like, I hate you, or
for sure.
Like these over-the-top things?
Oh, yeah. And also, too, and there's a legal element that I don't want to go too much into here.
That's fine.
But also... folks made mistakes of sending harassing text messages and emails and things like that, but particularly text messages where it's all documented. And even in this era, I mean, we're in 2024 as we record this, and it's sad,
Jason and me had Maddox on, a well-known early days of the internet.
I remember Maddox for sure.
And Maddox was on because of a documentary he made about his stalker. Mm-hmm. Because it had gotten so out of control, he felt he wanted to turn the tables. This was an individual who befriended him, then became part of his organization. Then they actually had like a relationship in the fact of like money and like the business side of things, they got entangled like that. And then as that all fell apart because of certain activities, stalker activities that were being done, it all fell apart naturally because this person, they were like falling apart as business persons as well as friends. That's where the stalking really took over, and I was trying to avoid this individual. They would constantly make situations with lawyers to make us both be in places at the same time on purpose. Like, it went overboard.
It's creepy.
And it's because of that friendship, that relationship that existed. It feels like it's a sharper sword that stabbed them. You know, that's what he kind of explained
and
to
particularly
me.
if you happen to be friendly with
And I
somebody.
don't know how your situation like is involved. I don't know if it was somebody that was a friend of yours or somebody that was completely blind that you had no relationship with ever in your life that came out of the complete woodwork. Like, I have no idea.
And you know, and so one of the reasons why I wrote the book is because you get a lot of bad advice when you deal with this, and you know, people who have good intentions will say things like, we'll just stop using social media, or just stop, or hey, fight fire with fire. You start your own anonymous Twitter account. And it's like, I'm 46. I'm not going to start an anonymous Twitter account to harass somebody who is harassing me, you know? And you just, and again, it's easy to, when you get in an argument with somebody too, it's hard to have any kind of pity or empathy, but really this is a mental health issue with a lot of people.
Especially in our day and age where a lot of communication is being sent textually, like it's being texted to people.
Absolutely.
And with text, you lose tone and inflection.
100%.
It's completely gone. And so you can read words and sentences 30 different ways, and they do all have valid, legitimate background to every single reading of them, except for we know that there's only one real way it's being put, and that it's being dealt out in whatever situation it's being regarding. So it's...
He starts an account and follows her, and he's like, someone named Marty McFly 85 62 47 is following me. Who's this? I don't know. That's so weird. Anyway, sorry about everything.
and so for people who do choose to read the book, and again, it's available on Amazon. If first of all, who reads books anymore? Which is what I tell people. People tell me that they've only skimmed it. But if there's one piece of the book that I suggest people read, there's chapter 15, and there's a group that I refer to as the milquetoast majority. And it's one of those things where if you get attacked online, most people aren't going to weigh in on your behalf, because most people just see a Twitter beef or a Facebook fight or an Instagram fight, and you might assume that everybody's going to rally to your side, but that's not the way that the milquetoast majority works, you know?
Correct.
Most people just kind of want to watch and observe and don't want to jump into a fight.
As we all have seen a million times, there'll be a cell phone camera footage of a fight. And what's everybody else in the video doing around the fight? They all have their phones out in the video, and no one's helping.
Yep.
And that's kind of what you said. That's your milquetoast.
That's a great example of that.
That is the normalization of it in America right there. Do you believe that there's a risk that your book might unintentionally provide tips or ideas to potential stalkers?
That's a great question. No, because I think that the advice that I give about letting go of beefs and kind of releasing some of the anger you get, and I should point out too that like a lot of the ideas in my book are built on other really great ideas, like the ideas of like the Sedona method and letting go of beefs. This is not a how-to guide for people that want to harass someone else. It's a how-to guide for how to deal with it if people are coming after you.
Now, I also wanted to ask you this because I thought it was important.
Mm-hmm.
What ethical considerations did you take into account while writing on such a sensitive subject? Like what? Because whatever you dealt with also played a part into how you processed it, how you created this kind of guide to help process for others.
100%.
So like obviously affected you directly, there had to have been ethical concerns potentially that you brought into your own mind as you were moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And so I make it very clear that none of the examples in the book are based on real characters or based on real life.
Sure.
You know, I use fictional stories. I don't use anything that's based on actual events.
But if you base everything on fictional stories, for the idea that they're providing a moral guide or sense in some form or fashion, do you feel that it's not really being, how do I say this? It's not being challenged by something in a more legitimate manner. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, your story does sound like something that could happen, or I could have a story of something that did happen.
Yeah, I get what
and
you're saying.
Therefore, your steps have more legitimacy because now these are real stories and how they apply to real situations.
I get what you're saying.
Do you see what I'm saying? I understand
see,
you presented them in the book as legitimate situations in real life, and you didn't present them in some cartoonish fashion. But my point being, like, real versus that.
For sure. And so I think folks actually, and folks have already seen this, we see, if you go through the different examples in the book of folks who've dealt with very specific stalking and harassment examples, you will be able to think back to headlines that you've read in the last 2 to 3 years to whom these situations apply. So even though the names,
could apply,
and I think we're all one temper tantrum away from being in a viral video. We're all one disgruntled ex-friend who's really bitter about something away from having to deal with this yourself if you haven't already.
Yeah. And so, all right, the process. Mm-hmm. What if you were to, like, bullet point it? Mm-hmm. How does it? What do you think is the most important aspect of your process?
I think I'm going to narrow it down to 2.
Okay.
So the first one is, when you're being attacked, you can look at it from the prism of the acronym for it is ACS, which is, does this attack on me affect my desire for approval from other people? Is that what's really making me mad about this guy saying this on Twitter? Is it affecting my desire to have control? I can't control what that troll over there is posting about me and saying about my family and saying about where I work.
Fair.
And the third one is it affecting my desire for security? Is this guy saying all this stuff about me because he's trying to get me fired? And if I get fired, then I lose my job, and I lose my income and my family's health insurance and whatever. So if you look at an attack, and instead of thinking, gosh, my fight or flight is kicking in, I want to slap this guy, I want to choke this guy, I'm going to kill this guy, you think, okay, what do I feel like I'm losing here? Is it approval, control, or security? So if you step back a little bit and turn down the fight or flight reflex and look at it from that prism, you realize, okay, I'm worried he might try to get me fired from this radio station. But is that really a possibility? So you apply a logical process to that fight or flight that you're feeling.
I got you. All right.
And then I'll say go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, put a pin in that.
Yep.
We're going to come right back. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to finish off this topic, and we're going to discuss a little bit more about the stalking stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be back right after this. $12:80 a.m. KYRO 105.3 on your FM dial. John Combest is our guest here on the QNow today. Welcome back.
I am here. The song is by request.
It is by request.
I brought it up.
It was Jason.
No, he brought it up.
Or was it you?
Well, he mentioned the group, and then
yes.
and then we kind of both went.
Yeah, that's where it's at. Yeah, that's where it's at.
And we started belting out lines, and
so before we went to the break, we were talking about your techniques.
Yeah.
You had 2 of them. We had talked about the ACS aspect.
Yeah. And then
and then now there is another piece that you thought was also important.
Yeah, and I think, and this is again something I talk about in chapter 15. One of the concepts is the idea of covert contracts. So this doesn't just apply to, stalking or harassment. A covert contract is any agreement that you have with someone that the other person isn't even aware of. So if you think about in your life, an
agreement you have with someone else
that they don't even know about.
What you'll take.
I'll give you a great
like
example.
what you're
of this.
willing to deal with, almost. Like,
Well, here's a great example. So think back to your younger days, Mark. You're up in Florissant.
got it, running around.
And you're running around. And you go
Riverfront Times is starting to pop off. Ray Hartman's got that bad boy moving.
Yeah,
there's no plan on it getting sold anytime soon. We got to get through year one. You know what I'm saying?
So
I got you.
Think of the guy that buys a girl drinks at the bar.
Okay.
And he has a covert contract with her because in his mind, he thinks, well, see, I'm going to buy her some drinks. And then she's going to come to our table and she's going to hang out with our group of friends. And then afterwards, after we go back to my place, she's going to hang out with all of us. This girl doesn't know that contract exists.
But she does, though, right? Because she's a girl. She's been hit on before,
She
I'm
knows
sure.
that you're probably
Right.
trying
She
this,
knows
but
what's
she
going
didn't
on.
agree to that contract. So why do people get upset? Because the other party in a covert contract doesn't hold up their end of the bargain.
And so because they don't know about
Because
it.
they don't know. So think of a teenager that's 15 that thinks, oh, I'm going to start cleaning my room and doing the dishes and getting good grades, and mom and dad are going to buy me a car. Now, the parents have no idea unless they told the kid that, that contract existed. How this relates to stalking and harassment is we all have friends who we think, man, if stuff goes down, and if I get attacked and everybody starts dogpiling on me, my friends are going to be like toy soldiers and they're going to be there for me and they're going to have my back and they're going to pile on that dude on the internet because you have a covert contract with your friends that they'll always be there to support you. So if all of your friends don't line up and pile on that stalker and that harasser, you're going to get pissed off and you're going to say, where are my friends in this moment?
Exactly, because you created your own contract, like you said.
Your own covert contract.
In your head.
That's exclusively in your head. And
I understand now.
And so one of the disappointing things is when you talk to people who's lived through this, they talk about the loneliness because they feel that they have friends that could have weighed in or could have piled on that dude or could have stood up for him. But your friends are
Did you feel that way in your situation? Did you
little
have
bit,
some
yeah.
people that you thought, hey, they could have stood up or said something, or
And
they definitely were in the right to do it if they needed to?
100%. Now, I also had, so you can look at it two ways. You can look at the people who chose to stand by you and stand up and fight for you, or you can look at the X percentage of people who just kind of throw their hands up and say, don't want to get involved in that. And then also, Mark, paradoxically,
How do we view those people?
They're members, the people that don't stand. That's when I refer to as the milquetoast majority.
Like a mom. A mom might, because you're older when you're dealing with this situation, a mom might 100% love you because you're her son and might 100% have your back in any situation. It's just not her world. She doesn't deal with it. She wants to or could want to come to your help, but she can't because she just doesn't around that.
Yep.
And so therefore it's like, but my mom didn't help me. And it's like, but there's not nothing she could do.
Now,
like, what could she have done for
But you bring up a great point, though, because people who were a little bit in the public eye, so Mark, we'll use you as an example. If people started piling on you for something you said or something they perceived that you did.
So Monday, Jason, go ahead. Yeah, so Monday, this past Monday.
Yeah,
go ahead.
whatever. It just happens all the time.
Just whatever day of the week. And just go ahead. Yeah, it's Monday.
But in general, the stronger you are and the higher status your friends associate with you, they're more likely to think, oh, Mark's got it. Mark's not going to let this get to him. Oh, Mark was featured, and the Riverfront Times called him a name. The Riverfront Times said he's terrible. Mark doesn't care. Mark's cool. Mark's going to be fine with this. People generally don't think the higher your relative status in the friend group, the less likely your friends are to think, gosh, I should text Mark and just tell him, I know it's kind of awkward, but I should just tell him I'm there. You know, I got you. Hang in there. You get what I'm saying?
I guess, yes. It depends on, I guess, the hierarchy of a friends group or how a friends group is set up. Some kind of do it in a circular panel format. And so, like, everybody feels like they're equal within a group.
Yeah.
Some are a hierarchical type setup where there's one friend that might seem like the alpha or
leader
be
of a group.
The leader of a group. And then everybody else kind of falls into their spots underneath that, you know?
Yeah.
That guy's the fighter. I'm the smart one.
Yeah.
You know,
And
everybody's got their spots.
I don't need to have that guy's back because he's got all these battles himself.
Right,
you know?
exactly. But that dude who's taking all the punches and throwing on the real fights, they're the one also in the corner crying because they got to like lick the wound.
Yep, and
they
they're
got
the
to
ones
deal with
that
the
are
scar. So sometimes they need a pat on the back too. You know,
They're the ones, and you know, let's make this about wrestling real quick.
Sure.
Hogan always said that Nash said that he had a good relationship, or actually, it was Scott Hall said he had a good relationship with Hogan because sometimes he would go to Hogan and say, "Hey, with all this stuff going on, are you cool?" And Hogan told Scott Hall one time, you're the first person that's ever asked me that. Because Hulk was always the leader of the locker room and the leader of the company.
Yep.
Nobody ever goes to the guy that has it all together and says, hey, are you okay, man?
And also, I think the reason that is because of the level of success that they're at when they're doing the thing they're doing. Like, if you are on WCW Nitro in the middle of the Monday Night Wars, you're one of the most popular pro wrestlers that has ever touched the earth.
For sure.
Legitimately.
Your life's not much different.
So your life's not much different than Hogan's, and you're happy cashing them checks,
Absolutely.
driving them cars. So Hogan can't be unhappy.
Yeah.
Hogan can't be having a bad day. Even if I'm having what I consider a bad day, there's no way that we're all too happy. We're
Yep.
And so you might not want to ask. You might not think that there's a reason to ask. So I could see a Hogan going, "You're the first person to ever ask."
Yeah.
Because everybody's always been making money around us. Everybody's always been kind of at the top of the game. And so everybody always feels like everybody's in the same boat.
So I talk about that a little bit. And thanks again, Mark, for the opportunity to talk about this.
No problem, man.
I feel like there are so many lessons in the book, and everything is to a matter of degree. And even if you're, people might come at you all the time on Twitter, Mark, because of your opinions or because you have a higher profile. But normal, everyday people also deal with this, whether it's somebody crazy on Facebook or somebody they have a negative interaction
An employee that they work with, a coworker. Their stalking issues happen between coworkers a lot.
Yep.
Because in many cases, it'll be a guy, a girl gets hired, they find him interesting, but they don't have that personality. And so therefore, they resort to weird antics that turn out coming off very stalkerish. And they might have the best intentions in the world. They really think she's a sweet person. They really would like to date her and get to know her as a human being. They just don't know what they're doing.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they're going to make mistakes.
And
and there's not much you can do about it because it all is going to go down in the eyes of the law the same way.
Yeah, you're right. And we've all seen, butthurt guys and men that cannot handle rejection. That's just another aspect
Guys
of what
that get imagine, Jason.
Yes.
There's a library, right?
Yeah.
And in that library, there's a book. It's a mean book, Jason. It's got pornography, but 1870s.
Okay, wait a minute.
1870s pornography.
Oh,
that kind of pornography.
Was she showing her ankles?
She's showing a lot of her ankles, bro.
I like it.
And we've got to get rid of that
leg-shaving
book.
manual.
We got to get rid of that book. So how do we show that we're tough?
Yeah.
Oh, we get a flamethrower,
Yeah,
Jason.
we set fire to other
set
books.
fire to that book and all the books, because if they can't, they made a PDF version. Oh, dang it! There's a Kindle version of that.
I got a flamethrower.
I got a fact check.
Darn
the
it.
Jason, did you say that there was a shaving manual? I don't think women did much shaving.
Oh,
I
they
hope
did.
they
It was a
did. I meant
very
upper
well
class.
manicured
It
plane.
was a manual they got
Manicured plane.
at finishing school.
Finishing school?
Is that where they teach girls? Well, never mind.
That's right.
Never mind.
It's the Robert Kraft School of
You
Finishing.
guys are being crass. I heard that about this show.
We do have moments. We have our
disgusting.
moments. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, for sure.
About the book.
Yeah.
How has your book been received by the people who have picked it up, and how has it done?
Yeah, I feel like it's exceeded all expectations for the feedback that I've gotten from people.
Did you self-publish, or did you?
I did self-publish.
You did self-publish. How did you do that?
Through Amazon.
Through Amazon, where you can upload it and then they automatically.
And by the way, the thing that I tell
sounds like a
everybody
great way to do it.
Is first of all, I used to make fun of people who would self-publish books because people would say, well, I'm a published author. And it's like, yeah, but it's self-published. It's not really published.
Exactly.
But I would recommend, I've been an evangelist for anybody that thinks they have a book in them, so to speak, to do it. And Amazon makes it so easy. But the rewarding thing is...
I do have a book in me.
What's it about?
It's about being a delivery driver. I did that part-time for the better part of 20 years. And I think the stories that I can tell and the beliefs. I've written down quite a few of them, kept notes over the years and stuff like that. My thoughts about like certain aspects of the industry, individuals within the industry, the restaurant industry in itself, like, because that's where a lot of delivery happens, you know?
Things, what?
Lots of like things that happened while I was on deliveries, like some of the stories of just the crazy stuff I saw.
I was going to say things you can legally do to food. People who don't tip.
To people who don't tip you well and stuff like that. Yeah,
what can I legally do to this food that will make it not as enjoyable?
I will tell you this. I know a delivery driver who would get angry about the fact that, like, say he was door dashing or some type of delivery like that. If he found out that he got a bad tip, he would take the pizza or whatever the food was, turn the air conditioner on in the car full blast, and blow it right on the food with the pizza box top open.
That dude's
so
rotten.
that when they got to their house, that pizza was pretty
suboptimal. It'll show them.
No, it was sub-warm.
It was very subwarm.
It was like you took it from a carousel at Casey's.
Is that what you think it? Do you think it was that warm?
It had to.
If that's the worst they're doing to food.
It felt that way taking it to their house. I mean,
wait, what do you? Wait a second.
I mean, if that's the worst,
are you
thing,
saying that you took the food?
No,
this is you?
It's a cliffhanger.
This is kind of odd, John.
And we'll finish the story on the Halloween
John,
show.
I don't know what's going on here, but
12 to 2.
Something odd is going on here.
We'll find out.
We went from a story that was to Jason's story being this, like
on a card that someone gave a man in 1970
Jay,
to come here.
Another wild Jason
and
story.
It will say who it was.
That's a short story for a book right there. Self-publish that, Jason.
But anyway, the book's done well. You said exceeded expectations.
Yeah, and also I say too, without getting too sappy here with you guys, it's the most meaningful thing I've done in terms of professional wise, different jobs I've had, different roles I've had. It's the most significant thing I've done in terms of helping people and telling my story.
That's cool, man. That's really cool. And thank you for writing your book. Like, it's good that there was someone out there paying attention to something that could be pulled from such an ugly situation that happens so often in this world nowadays. You know,
well, thank you for saying that.
And here's the thing: we talk about politics. We all deal with it. I do feel, and I said this maybe it was last month on the show.
Yes.
I feel that the world has gotten a little uglier.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've seen a lot more road rage incidents, is what I said on that show a few months ago, and I still hold that to be true. I feel that as we move towards this November election, Trump's going to make things a lot worse. I think his rhetoric is going to ramp up.
Everyone's going to be rigged.
Others might disagree. John might disagree because he is a Republican. But I do feel he's going to do this, and it's going to create some type of a dangerous situation that ends up opening everyone's eyes, like that first bullet.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of anger out there, but I also think, and I hear people a lot of times talk about how social media how Trump made social media a lot worse, but I think people were terrible on social media before Donald Trump.
Sure.
And I think that, you can make an argument that he exacerbated that or certainly that he
continues to exacerbate that. Let's put that in preference. I mean, the guy stands literally outside, and then mainstream media in all formats takes it and runs with it every day and tells everybody, here's what happened today. And then they go and look at the video of him saying the stuff, and he is saying the things they're accusing him of. Like, okay, hold on. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to finish this topic because I do want to talk about this. Plus, we got to put you on the hot seat.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
You haven't been on the hot seat.
So hot.
It's going to be good. We'll be back on the show right after this. $12:80 a.m. KYRO. Mark Bland, Jason Call, and our guest, John Combest.
I'm in the house.
I can
hanging
see
out
why
with
you
us.
invited us to this party.
We've been talking about Donald Trump a little bit. We've been talking about what could happen in America moving forward towards this November election. And John Combest, being an individual who is well-spoken in your own right for politics, I would like to hear your opinion personally, because you are our guest. And that's why we have you on this show.
Yeah.
We talk some national politics. Donald Trump is the RNC's current pick for president of the United States. Is this a man you're going to elect yourself? Like, are you...
Will I vote for him?
Voting for Donald Trump?
Oh, yeah, over Joe Biden? Absolutely.
Okay, now, even though you know everything that is going on, and I'm sure you can make claims to Joe Biden being as corrupt as anybody else is corrupt. I get it. They're all corrupt, right? But with everything going on, to exacerbate what's already the anger, the political, the this, the that, and the other, would it be worth it? Is it worth it to hire that man again?
Yeah.
For the things that he says he will do, because the minute he does some of those things that could infringe on our freedoms, now you're going to see that real Constitution rear its ugly head, and they're going to come.
Yeah, and I think so. First of all, back to the previous conversation.
And don't forget, they're all from the south side of Chicago, and they all shoot at each other. So they're human beings that are very well adept to shooting at other human beings, as well as being shot at themselves. They're very well versed in it. So we'll move forward from there. But remember, they're all from the south side of Chicago, so it's okay.
Yeah. So, but I mean, also, so coming into this primary, so 2 years ago, I viewed Donald Trump as being like the guy that came to a party when he was in college wearing his leather jacket.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, his time has passed. He's not going to be our guy anymore. We need to give him a good way to bow out and continue, doing whatever that it is that he does. And, the time is for somebody else now. But this is Donald Trump's party. And as much as it's unfashionable to say this, we have a binary choice. Like, it is Joe Biden or Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, I would have said 2 years ago that he wouldn't have been our nominee. I thought it would have been somebody like a DeSantis or, I mean, not a Nikki Haley, but it would have been somebody
different. Somebody who looked like a Ted Cruz. Somebody who looked like they were closer to the top of the food chain.
Yeah, you're exactly
in regards
right.
of that, like not Mike Pompeo. So, okay. But these things have happened. John, I'm sure that in your stalking situations, you might have gotten lawyers involved at some point. I don't know for sure. If you have, obviously the laws of the United States of America and our lands are what you believe need to be upheld to protect you within these said situations.
Yeah.
Same laws were developed by the same individuals who also developed some of the laws that lead to the things that Donald Trump is being accused of.
Right.
And his situation is just as serious in front of those judges and those Bibles that they put their hands on as your situation you want to be taken legitimately that a stalker was dealing with you in that courtroom.
Yep.
Like, it's all very serious, and everyone is telling the truth. Top to bottom. So they're not just leveling just some random stuff at him. They obviously have done their homework and have specific examples of things and people that they are leveling these things. And by the way, we've seen the Costello situation pop off with the judge this past week.
Yes.
It looked really bad for him in this situation. He's already admitted, because the guy from the National Enquirer stated, I was paid to bury stories because of the election in 2016.
This
guy also doubled down and said that, we were trying to cover stuff up also. Who cares, Judge? And the judge is like, I care.
Yeah.
It's this courtroom that John Combest in Missouri respects the laws of, and you will too. If that guy is dealing with those things, the value of him. Why would you want him back in power? Even if it was to bring other people into power with him that you feel would be in positions that you feel might be better in that regard, maybe not so much for him, but he might bring this person along, and then you feel better about that guy being at least in that position, so you're not really worried about Trump so much. I just don't understand. Maybe explain, like, give me some value to it.
Yeah, well...
And that's okay. It's your answer. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. Like, whatever you give me is the answer.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking for something, because if there is value to believe, to want to vote for him, which is what you're willing to do, you already said, there has to be some conviction behind it.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, let's go back to the idea of who is going to control our government. And do you think that Republicans running the House, and so if we don't have the House, and or we do or don't have the Senate, I want a Republican in the White House. I don't want Democrat control of the White House and Congress. Like, it's a pretty simple binary choice.
But we're almost there, though, bro. Like, I feel like, and I'm not saying, like, bro to be dismissive. I just threw that out there as an affliction. I'm trying to say, I think that we're at that point where we've kind of played love the checks and balances, and I love the value of checks and balances. Our problem is that we've kind of had, outside of an infrastructure bill that was signed by Biden,
right,
during this presidency, I don't remember, other than taking the North America Free Trade Agreement, which was the United States, Canada, and Mexico, rerouting a couple of things and calling it the United States, Mexico, Canada, whatever, accord or whatever it was. Yeah. Like, outside of that, I don't remember.
You're putting him somewhere where he's
Obama didn't do any major infrastructure. He did do the Financial Reform Act of 2009.
But his big thing was Obamacare, which was
Obama. Well, Obamacare did, but that was more something that we've always been talking about. Roe versus Wade, abortion, healthcare. They're always going to be like those permanent issues. You know what I'm saying? So, like, any president that attacks a permanent issue, I think everybody's kind of on board with. Like, where are you at on the idea of universal health care?
So I'm not convinced that it's a good idea.
It would be nearly impossible in a country
I know that's
our
your
size.
issue, Mark.
Possibly. I'm not against universal health care. I like the idea. I mean, think about that. We all have aged parents. Mm-hmm. They could have problems, and I have other friends who've had cancer and issues, and I've had friends pass away from these things.
Sure.
I know how much it costs some of them to deal with the medical bills. We're the richest country in the world. Why is it I got countries that are numbered 350 on the list that have universal health care, and they're fine? They're making it. They're paying. They're running their governments. They're fine. They drive Mercedes the same as us. Like, they living in mansions where they live. Like, they're all fine. We can't do that here? So that all of us don't have to worry about a sniffle nose or a broken arm or dying from cancer. Like, I feel like that's an easy win for all of us because it helps everybody do the one thing we all want. Stay alive.
It would be easier state by state because then you're looking at the same populations as some of these smaller European countries that can do that.
Sure.
But
if states wanted to do that, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Involved to have that happen.
Well, we already pay taxes out the wazoo anyway. We could roll some of these things
People who are
now.
healthy think that they won't use it, not thinking 10, 20 years down the road.
But wasn't the entire point of the Obamacare, of the Affordable Care Act, to provide health care to people who can't ordinarily pay for it?
Yes.
Or for people who
For
or for the
low
working poor,
cost.
people who choose to work, or people who can't work to get health care.
And it does work. It does work. They still have the healthcare.org.
Yeah,
I have a
you
friend
can
of mine
go
who
to-
literally just had a conversation with me 2.5 weeks ago, hanging out at his house. I asked him about. He had made a comment that he had paid some bills and this, that, and the other, and he mentioned that he had to pay his health care. And I was like, because I knew where he worked, I was like, oh, you don't have it through such and such. And then he goes, no, I do it independently through the Obamacare. I asked him, how much was it for him to have for him and his wife? It was only $150 a month for him and his wife to have full, like, $20 copays to go to the doctor. Like, the same thing that I have, you have, other people have from regular jobs. He's getting for $150 for him and his wife. Like, that's just two people. $75 a person. That's not super expensive. That does fall into the category of what Obama wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I feel like it does help people. Now I wish it was just like, don't pay for it. Like, let's just not make one more $1 trillion jet, and let's just pay off the health care for a couple of years.
I mean, Canada.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying.
And then we'll still have 50 million super jets because we already produced 49 of them. All right,
but
and
I
they're
also
just
think,
sitting there and they're not being used anyway. So it's like we're fine, we're okay if we just don't produce one more and we pay for John's health care.
I personally know someone.
Because John, I want it for you as much as me.
I personally know someone who lives outside of Toronto, and they had to have a heart procedure, And they didn't have to wait.
Jason?
They got right
Was it
in.
Drake?
Jason?
It was not Drake.
Jason, we're going to get in trouble.
Drake.
Jason, we got 5 minutes.
Oh, hot seat.
Hot seat. We're going to get in trouble.
Burning.
We're going to get in trouble.
You feel it?
All right, here it is.
I'm ready. Boom, boom, boom.
5 questions for you. We don't typically do them so rapid fire, but we only have 5 minutes left here on the show. I want to definitely get you on the hot seat so that you are an official member of the QNow tribe, okay? Question number 1. There's 5 questions. Whatever you answer, that's your answer. We're cool with it. We'll go a little rapid fire, but go ahead. You know, if you need a second, take a second. That's fine. What's question number 1? What's something that we'll definitely stop seeing by year 2050? Something in society that we'll probably definitely see go away by 2050 completely.
Gasoline-powered cars.
You think so?
Yeah, I think that...
Is that a bad move or a good move?
I think it's terrible.
I don't disagree with you that it's terrible. I think that we should just keep all options open at all times.
I'm an all of the above type guy, but I think that the pressure is high enough. You look at California and other states, the political pressure is high enough that we're going to be forced to use EVs.
All right. Question number 2. Name something you saw the first time and thought, I need one of those.
Ooh.
I need one of those. Yeah.
Probably a woman.
Well,
boom.
Outside of a woman, I'm talking about like a physical object, something that you saw for the first time, and you were
this
like,
is going to be super corny. But,
it's okay. It's whatever you answer.
But probably around 08, I saw an iPhone, and I was an Android guy, and I was like, you can take a picture and send it to somebody right now? I had to have one.
Fair enough. And are you an Android guy still, or are you an iPhone?
I'm an iPhone guy now.
So am I. I had to be an iPhone person. Like, I had so many Androids break on me. It forced me to switch to the iPhone.
Yeah.
And I've been very happy with my iPhone for many years. It's always worked. Question number 3. What is a rated R movie you saw as a younger person that is just still fresh in your mind today, to this day? Like, it just caught you that
Revenge of the Nerds.
Revenge of the Nerds, that good?
Yeah, it was that good.
Ogre UA.
And I mean, there were several that I probably shouldn't have watched. I went to the filming locations.
Oh, you did? You loved it that
University
much?
of Arizona. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome,
fantastic.
dude. I would have. What a great movie.
So good.
Stedman eventually. Remember in what's Married with Children, he becomes Stedman, the father.
Yep.
I should not have watched that in
Ted
first grade.
McGinley. That's his name.
Ted McGinley. Yeah,
Ted
you're
McGinley.
right.
Question number 4. What's a life skill you seem to think people no longer possess or have? Something that is a life skill that just no longer exists.
Changing a tire.
You don't think it exists? I mean, I can do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
So it exists.
There's an age cutoff, I bet, for that.
But you think there's an age cutoff for sure?
Yeah.
25 and under?
I bet using a bottle
30,
opener.
Do you think
35.
30?
Bottle openers
You think
good,
30?
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
I mean, I use a lighter to open a bottle. Like my brother uses rings on his fingers. I know people that use their mouth and all kinds of things.
What are you doing?
Question number 5. Name one cool thing about your family. Something that identifies only them in your mind. Like something great about your family, your personal family.
Oh, man.
Something that you just, like every time, it's every year they get together and do this, or there's always something that happens, or like, what's identifiable cool thing about your family?
Man, I'm thinking of
Could be everybody's short. Like we just are all short people. Like nobody's over 6 foot tall. Like whole family of under 6 foot.
Yeah, I just think of the days growing up in Spanish Lake, and I'm thinking about, hanging out at holidays, and if there was anything particularly funny. I think it was just our family's ability to...
Was there a holiday that they might have celebrated a little bit more or harder than others?
Yeah, I think it was Thanksgiving, and I think Thanksgiving makes me think about us all. My mom was both of my parents have passed, so my mom was a very kind woman, and we spent most of Thanksgiving just busting on my mom, making fun of my mom because she was such a kind individual. So I would probably just point to those type things. My godfather ran a bar up in Spanish Lake. So a lot of fun events were had at the neighborhood bar.
Sure.
And the stuff that wouldn't be allowed in 2024.
I got you.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
All
Wouldn't that
right.
be great to be Sam Malone?
Oh,
and
yeah.
run and cheers.
But everybody
What a life.
thinks they could run a bar, and they'd probably run.
super
It's like everybody
difficult.
thinks they could run a radio station.
Yeah.
Well, John, listen.
Not easy, people.
You have just gone on the hot seat. You've successfully made it, and we are at the end of our show. Ladies and gentlemen, First off, I want to thank John Combest for being on our show. Thank you
for
so
having
much.
me. I appreciate it very much, guys.
And make sure you guys check out his book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. Get that at Amazon.com and wherever you get your books.
Wherever you get them.
Can they get it in a Kindle format?
They can get it in a Kindle, yeah, absolutely.
There we go. All right, well then, Jason, anything you want to add?
No.
All right,
No.
that's going to do it for us on this episode of the QNow, ladies and gentlemen. Check out the QNow.com, old episodes, new episodes, and everything in between. We will see you guys next time on the show.
Impossible.